Hi, my name is Megan, and this is Everything Lit. And today we are going to talk through my August, I almost just said book haul because it's so many books. It is maybe the most books I've ever read in a month. It is my August wrap-up. I'm going to talk through the 20 books I read in August. And this is because I was doing the Magical Readathon and the Tropical Readathon. So I read 20 books like a crazy person. I have never read so many books. It's the audiobooks for sure. But I will say, I think the quick reading, I didn't retain as much about some of these books because I was listening to the audiobook at work and I was just trying to get through it. And so some of the some of the star ratings might reflect that like quickness. And I'm not trying to read 20 books every month. That's insane for me as a full-time working person. That's not going to keep happening. So let's get into it. I'm going to talk through these in their star rating order. And the first one is a book I do not own, and that is A Twisted Love Story by Samantha Downing. I gave this 2 stars. It was not good, and I will fight anyone who thinks it is good. Because, like, you can enjoy it, this is not a good book. A Twisted Love Story follows Wes and Ivy and their, like, will they, won't they, toxic relationship where they, like, fight a lot and then they have a lot of good sex and then they fight some more and she gets jealous and he gets jealous and they play all these little mind games when they, like, go to the bar together and then she'll flirt with someone else to make him jealous. And, like, she'll tell him he should grow a beard to be hotter. And it's just, it was high school. It was high school level mind games. Like, if you're gonna give me something called a twisted love story, I want it to be twisted. Make them do some weird stuff. Like, make them batshit. Like, this is a thriller. I wanted a higher level of intrigue. At one point, this girl, like, crushes up all of her boyfriend's favorite candy and, like, douses it in Fresca and, like, leaves it all over his couch and just, like, makes a mess. It's like, wow, that's your version of, like, a twisted love story. She fucked up his couch. People do that on accident by spilling wine or vomiting. Like, are you kidding me? So that was a mess. The mystery wasn't even really a mystery. It was kind of like, oh, what actually happened? But, like, what actually happened was freaking stupid. So I do not recommend. And a lot of people who didn't like this book, because I read it for the Books and Lala, the Literally Dead book club. A lot of people didn't like it, which is fair. But a lot of people who didn't like it were like, oh, My Lovely Wife is so good. I still love Samantha Downing. I don't get that. I didn't care for My Lovely Wife, and I did not like this one. I have one other book of hers on my shelf. I have For Your Own Good, and if I don't like that one, I think I'm done with Samantha Downing. You know what I should do? Oh my god. I should do a vlog series. So I am just a big Books and Lala stan. I love her content. We don't have very similar reading tastes, but I just love everything she does. And she does this, like, 3rd time's the charm, trying to find a favorite author. And I feel like I should do, like, a last year on the chopping block. Because I've got Tessa Bailey that I actually think I have 2 books by her left. Crap. But I have Tessa Bailey, I've got Samantha Downing. I'm sure I could find another author that, like, I've read 2 of their books and I didn't like them. And this is their 3rd chance. Otherwise, I'm done with their books. That sounds like fun, right? Let me know. Anyway, A Twisted Love Story, not good. 2 stars. I have a single 3-star, and that is A Mirror Mended by Alex E. Harrow. Actually, Alex E. Harrow might be the other author that I just, like, don't know if I care about their books. I really liked the first in this series, which is called A Spindle Splintered. This one was okay. I think it is a novella, so it's really thin, and I feel like I could have done with more. I feel like it could have been a fully fleshed out novel to get all of that character growth that she was trying to go for in here. So yeah, this is a sequel to A Spindle Splintered, and this is kind of a fairy tale Spider-Verse kind of thing where our main character can, like, hop into different versions of Sleeping Beauty. And in this one, she gets forcibly pulled into a Snow White retelling. And then we kind of go into a couple different Snow White retellings. But one of the interesting things about the first one, seeing several different worlds, or the twist on like what people are made to do, like I feel like what was interesting about the first book was less present in this. It was focusing on another character more and less on the actual Snow White mythology. I don't know. I think it was just a duology maybe of novellas, but I think if she comes out with more in this series, I will probably still pick it up, but I kind of hope she's done with it. And then in the 3.5 category, I have 3 books, and the first one is Cool for the Summer by Dahlia Adler. This is a YA romance, and it is about our main character coming to terms with being bisexual and having her first crush, her first relationship with a girl. It's a little bit of a Grease retelling. So our main character, Laura, goes away for the summer with her mom, and her mom is like working. She's staying at her boss's house in like the pool house or whatever, and Laura has a romance with the boss's daughter. And then she goes back to her normal school, and the girl that she got a crush on shows up there. And it's her like first day, and they're not really friends. They didn't like have a falling out, but they didn't ever discuss what was happening between them. And so it gets a little messy, especially because Chase, the boy that Laura has been like obsessing over for years, is now also interested in her. It was interesting to read about this character's dilemma of like figuring out what she wants, and like the idea of getting what she wanted initially before she had this changeful summer, and then not wanting what she thought she wanted. Just really fascinating, a really good YA exploration of like coming of age and figuring out your sexuality. I didn't have anything that I disliked about it. It just didn't do anything like groundbreaking. It was a decent read. I listened to it on audio. I've forgotten some of the details of it, but I do remember enjoying it. Next, I have The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. I have had this on my shelf for 800 years, and I finally read it, and I gave it a 3.5. I actually think I gave it like a full 4 stars on Goodreads, but I decided to bump it down to 3.5 just because I don't remember a lot of details. I remember that the character growth is fantastic. Our main character, Leah, is about to be married, and it is an arranged marriage between their 2 kingdoms because she's a princess, and this other kingdom that they don't want to like start a war with, and she runs away. And it follows her journey running away with her handmaid, finding a place to stay, and learning new skills and like blending in as a normal person. But there are 2 characters after her, the prince she was supposed to marry and an assassin. And one of the interesting things about this book is that for a lot of the book, we get all 3 of their points of view. Actually, we get multiple points of view, but we get the 2 male points of view, and we don't know which one is the assassin and which one is the prince for a good chunk of the book. I liked the romance. I liked the world building. I thought it was really interesting, and I will continue on with the series. But something about it, when I was like looking at my Goodreads later, I was like, I think this is a 3.5 for now. Another 3.5 is Better Late Than Dead by Linda Riley. What is so insane about this, I gave her first book 5 stars, I gave the next one 4 stars, and I gave this one 3.5. So they are going down. But Linda Riley on Goodreads liked my review of this one. This one that I said 3.5 doesn't live up to the others. Why? I was just like, not mortified, but like, why would you like my review? I just go look at the good reviews. I loved the other 2 books so much. This one just like wasn't as good. So this is a cozy mystery following Carly Hale and her grilled cheese eatery. And in this one, she is kind of forced into catering a bridal shower. It's very last minute. She's kind of a fill-in, stand-in. And then at the bridal shower, the groom, or the would-be groom, gets murdered. And it was just a little too long. I feel like by the end, I was pretty into it, and the last, 50 pages were exciting and awesome. I think one of the things I didn't like about this book, it introduces 2 new characters, and one of them kind of joins Carly's friend group, but you also think she might be the murderer, so you can't really get comfortable with her as a character, and her life is kind of sad, and I feel like this one didn't have the same level of coziness as the other 2. It was a little sadder, a little darker. The relationships didn't really change. Like, Carly has her best friend, and now she has her man, and she's got her dog. I don't know. I needed more of Carly hanging out with other people. I don't know, actually, because she did hang out with her friends a lot. Something about it kind of fell off for me. I think this might be the last one. It kind of felt very final, but if more come out in the series, I will read them. This one just didn't fully do it for me. And now onto our 4-star reads. So I listened to The Deep by Rivers Solomon and David Diggs. The audiobook was really interesting, really well read. It's narrated by David Diggs. I love a mermaid story that has a different origin. This is about these mer people who are descendants of slaves who were thrown overboard during the Atlantic slave trade. We follow one particular mer person. I don't remember the main character's name, but they are like the memory keeper for their tribe of mer people, and that comes with a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, because like you're the only person who remembers the trauma that gave birth to your species or your race. So it was a lot about memory and how we deal with trauma and tough memories, and how it's maybe not fair to put it on one person, but it's also not fair for it to define your whole life. But also like the remembering that suffering, remembering your origins shapes you. It was very interesting. I would probably read it again. I would think I would like to read it physically someday, but the audiobook was really good, and it definitely made me tear up. There is like a gentle kind of romance in there. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. Would recommend if you're into short books about mermaids. And then my other 4 stars, we have Sea Change by Gina Chung. This is about a young woman who works at an aquarium and is kind of obsessed with the giant Pacific octopus Dolores. This is kind of like a sci-fi literary, it's like literary speculative. It's very, very light sci-fi because it kind of takes place in an imagined future. It's not quite set in our time on our Earth, because there is like a mission going to Mars to like populate see if they can colonize Mars, and there is this polar vortex where her father gets lost, and she's kind of dealing with that grief and trying to be close to him at this aquarium while also figuring out her own life, and maybe the aquarium isn't her best choice. It was a very quiet character exploration kind of story with these slight speculative elements, and I really liked it. I liked the writing, I liked the character growth, I liked seeing her go downhill even further and then like bring it back around and kind of have that realization that like her relationships are the important thing, and maybe making more friends, and her cousin. And it was really nice. It was a nice, interesting story, and that's why I gave it 4 stars, because it didn't blow me away, but the writing was good and the characters were good, and I enjoyed my time reading it, and I can't wait to see what else Gina Chung does, because this was her debut. I gave 4 stars to Beneath the Sugar Sky by Seanan McGuire. This is in the Wayward Children series. This is book number 3, and this follows the children at Eleanor West's home, and they go on an adventure to get back one of the characters who is murdered in the first book. It was fascinating. It was lovely. The worlds that we learned about were super interesting, and I now cannot wait to get to where the Drowned Girls go, because I think we get introduced to some of the characters from that book in here. So I want to see their world, because again, mermaids. But we follow, a fat girl, and some of the it's so fascinating to send a fat girl to like the land of cakes or the land of sugar, and the way people treat her and the kind of disgust of like people think that is the kind of world where she would go, but actually she went to the water world, because in the water, in the freezing deep, you need blubber to keep you warm. Just fascinating. Loved it. And the last 4-star that I have is the first book that I finished this month, and that is A Snake Falls to Earth by Darcy Littlebadger. This is YA fantasy, like light fantasy, and this is about a Native American Lipan girl who believes in the animal people that her tribe used to know about, and she's like trying to translate her grandmother's or her great-grandmother's final words about where their family came from and what is special about the land that her grandmother lives on. So it must have been her great-grandmother. And it was cozy, but it still had stakes and interesting and fun. And we follow Nina as she is figuring out all of this about her family. And then we also follow Ollie, who is a snake person in the other world. And we learn about this other world with all of the animal people. Oh my god, my foot's asleep. And then we follow Ollie, who is a snake person in this other world with all the animal people, and his journey, like leaving home for the first time, and then he's trying to figure out what happened to all his other brothers and sisters, and then Nina and Ollie's worlds kind of collide at one point, and I really like Darcy Littlebadger's writing. I had one 4.5 star, and that is Bonds of Brass by Emily Skritsky. I finished this and then immediately bought the other 2 books in the series, so gotta finish those now. But this was an absolutely insanely high stakes sci-fi. Sci-fi fantasy? It's sci-fi, right? So these 2 boys, Etienne and Gal, are in this college together, and then some of their classmates try to attack Gal, and they find out he is like the heir to the empire. A bunch of stuff goes down. They have to run away. They meet some other characters. The stakes are just insanely high, and the ending, it wasn't necessarily a surprise to me, but it was, I wouldn't say it was a twist, but it was just, it did so many good things. And it's one of those, I like romances where like you can't see how the characters end up together, and Gal and Etienne do have this like simmering tension, and you just kind of can't see how they're going to end up happily together. Gal is the heir to this entire empire that like killed Etienne's family and like crushed his entire culture, and it just, I don't even know how to talk about it. It was so good. And finally, an absolute stack of 5 stars. So first I'm going to start with a book I got from the library, and that is The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. This is a thriller, and I gave it 5 stars because it was absolutely insane. Like, it's kind of got spooky gothic vibes. You have a writer going to a writer's retreat. She's one of just 5 people chosen for this month-long retreat, and it's kind of like NaNoWriMo, where they are expected to write a book in a month, and then like there's spooky elements and like interconnected relationships, and the main character has this like fraught relationship with her ex-best friend. It was bananas, and I loved it. It went off the rails toward the end. 5 stars, just incredible. Next, I've got 6 Feet Deep Dish by Mindy Quigley. I listened to this on audio, and it was amazing. What a great cozy series. I already bought the second one. This follows Delilah O'Leary. She is opening a gourmet pizza joint in Wisconsin. Her fiance has like bankrolled the whole thing because he's rich, and then the day of the opening they get in this fight, and he like hecks off and disappears and calls it quits. So she opens the shop, and that night her elderly aunt's caretaker gets murdered, and sets off the investigation. Delilah is like, I can do it better because the cops are not figuring it out and my aunt is in danger and I feel like I'm in danger. I feel like the stakes were pretty high for a cozy, but it also had that cozy feeling of a small town and a lot of people who care about each other. It has a chunky cat as like the pet sidekick. Their name is Butterball. Absolute show stealer. But I also just really loved Delilah's character. She's like quick to anger, she's fiery, she's funny, the narration was really good. And this is the kind of character I want in a cozy. She's kind of over the top, but she also makes sense. And then I read People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I gave this 5 stars. I'm a little surprised because I didn't love Beach Read the same way everyone else loved Beach Read, but I listened to this on audio and I think the audiobook did have something to do with it. So I've put a hold for the Book Lovers audiobook. We're going to see if that changes things. This is about Alex and Poppy. They have been best friends for years, and then 2 years ago they kind of had a falling out, and then now this summer they're going to do one final trip for Poppy to try and prove that Alex should keep going on these trips with her. It is a friends to lovers story, so I'm also surprised that I liked it because I typically don't like friends to lovers, but the vibes, the travel vacation vibes were so good. I loved hearing about all the places that they went. I think the games that they kind of play on vacation are fun, where they pretend to be other people or they pretend to be a couple. Or I think one of the things I really, really liked about this book was actually just what it had to say about vacation and being on vacation and going on vacation and traveling and like what that feels like and what that means to someone and the reasons why people want to travel. And I just thought the banter was really good between the two of them. They were funny. It was fun. The kind of shenanigans of everything going wrong on this final vacation when Poppy needs it to go right. I really enjoyed it, and I am surprised by that. I'm going to call it now. This is probably going to be my favorite Emily Henry. I listened to Sadie on audio by Courtney Summers. The audiobook for this was also fantastic. The podcast elements, the phone calls, it's like fully acted out. And this is absolutely a heartrending story about Sadie, who her younger sister is violently and brutally murdered, and Sadie decides she's going to go and kill the person who did it because she knows who did it and she's going to get her revenge. So it follows Sadie as she's going on this revenge journey, and then it also follows West McCrae, a podcaster who gets the tip on this story and goes into it trying to figure out what happened to Sadie, where did she go, what happened to her sister, why is this all happening. And it is very sad and very dark. Definitely made me tear up at work listening to the audiobook, but I had to keep it together. So I'm not a huge fan of ambiguous endings, and this kind of has an ambiguous ending. So it was still a 5-star, but thinking about that ambiguous ending and like how sad and dark this is, I could be talked into bringing it down to a 4.5, but I'm still going to say it's a 5-star because it was so immersive and so well told and just brutal. Another audiobook was Hello Girls by Brittany Cavallaro and Emily Henry. This is another kind of dark story about 2 girls who are both in pretty dire straits at home. One is abused by her father. He has a very tight rope on her. He's obsessed with image. He told her that her mother died because of a drug overdose, and then he tries to control her so she doesn't go the same way, is his reasoning. And then the other girl is really down on her luck. Her family is not well off, and her older brother is a drug dealer, and her mother works herself to the bone, and our main character works herself to the bone to like keep things afloat, keep the lights on, and her brother just like does whatever he wants. And they become best friends. They band together, and then they go on a road trip to Las Vegas to like run away from it all. They say, forget this, I'm done. And so our 2 characters, Lucille and Winona, they are amazing. I loved this. I actually heard like mediocre things, which I put off reading this for years. I think this came out in like 2018. Okay, this came out in 2019, but I put off reading it because I heard it wasn't that good, the characters weren't that deep, blah blah blah, or like it's unrealistic. I don't even know. I don't know what I heard. I just heard mediocre things and it scared me away, and I regret that. I need to stop listening to other people because I loved the female rage in this, and the way every single male character was disappointing was like, it was disappointing that every single male character was just garbage, but it also felt kind of real because I feel like a lot of the men you meet in life, whether it's like just casual like, oh, women should be making sandwiches kind of misogyny, or the actual like violent aggression, like there is a range of awfulness to men, and the whole range was represented here. I loved how our two characters like dealt with life and like their drive to get things done, and just at one point they say deeper in or dead. Like we're either going deeper into this thing that we've gotten ourselves into, or we're going to be dead. Like there's no going back. And I feel like that do or die relationship, that do or die attitude, I loved reading. I loved reading about it. I loved these characters. I felt for them. I only wanted them to be happy in the end and have the best. I think this could be a book that I reread because I loved what it was saying, and I loved that female rage, and it said some really interesting things about beauty and like being a beautiful young girl. I finally read The Book Charmer by Karen Hawkins. This is just a general fiction kind of cozy story. This follows this little town, Dove Pond, North Carolina, and we have the Dove family who all have like special abilities, and in this book we follow Sarah Dove, who like books talk to her, and she wants to like save her town. And then we follow Grace Wheeler, who was adopted when she was young. She had a lot of rage, and now her sister has like passed away, and both these characters are like in their late 20s, early 30s, and now Grace is like moving to Dove Pond with her adopted mother and her sister's daughter to like have a fresh start and help her adopted mother like with her dementia. Sarah thinks Grace is like the savior of Dove Pond, like she's gonna do something to save their town. And then we also follow Travis, who is a resident of Dove Pond, and he's moved back and he's dealing with the grief of like losing his father. And I just loved all three of these characters. I think their storylines intersected in really natural and genuine ways. I think the stakes were appropriately high while also feeling comforting and cozy. I feel like the like bookish, I don't know, Sarah being able to communicate books wasn't overdone, but it did have its place in the plot and bringing the characters together. I absolutely loved this, and it is the first in a series, so I will be reading those two other books. And this is another one where I listened to the audiobook, and the audiobook was really good. Another 5-star, Fence Rise Volume 5. This is a graphic novel following Nicholas and Seiji. They are on a fencing team at this prestigious high school, and in this book they are traveling to another high school for like a training camp, and so we finally get to meet some other teams in here. It was just so fun and so funny, and like the art is adorable. Just, I love it. Like just absolute hilarity all the time, but also the characters are well done and their motivations are clear. I just love this little sporty series, and book 6 comes out in January, so I have to wait until then. I already have it pre-ordered. 5 stars. I think I'm going to give 5 stars to all of these, but we shall see. I read Camp Sylvania by Julie Murphy. Another 5-star for Julie Murphy. This is a middle grade story about a fat camp that is run by vampires. So our main character, Maggie, is supposed to go to this theater camp this summer with her best friend, and her parents pull a bait and switch and say, actually, we're going to send you to this fat camp. and Maggie is understandably destroyed, upset by this, but when she gets to the camp, she meets two other girls, she starts to make the best of it, but there's some weird stuff happening. Like, the menu is very strange in the cafeteria, and they want people to give blood. Like, if you give blood, you get to be in the air conditioning, and you get snacks to keep your blood sugar up, and so, like, the best place to be is in the blood drive mobile. Very interesting. This was just fun. It was a fun, good time seeing these characters figure out what's going on, the spookiness of maybe the camp has a ghost and there are vampires, and like how to fight adults that control your life. Absolutely so good. And of course, since they're being sent to a fat camp, it kind of grapples with the body images that parents put on their kids, and the idea that like fat kids can't excel, or like you need to become skinny before you can pursue your dreams. Like your dream, it was just so good. I love everything Julie Murphy does, and I think there's a second book coming out in this. I think it was just recently put on Goodreads, so don't quote me on that, but I will be reading it if there is one. And this also, I read it at the end of summer, but it still just gave those perfect summer vibes. It was hot and sticky, but they also got to go swimming sometimes, but they were also like putting on this camp play. Just wonderful. Another 5-star, knocking it out of the park, Goldie Moldavsky with Lord of the Fly Fest. And what's funny is both of these authors are authors I want to do my like guide to one of my favorite authors series. I just need to catch up on their flippin' books. Stop writing. Just kidding. Don't ever stop. But this is kind of a Lord of the Flies retelling, but also takes the, I think it was called Firefest, like disaster. And it is such a good parody. I think Goldie Moldavsky is just brilliant because the parodies are not, they are over the top and ridiculous, but it's done in such a way as to make it feel natural, like it could happen, but also the parody element is in the voice. The voice is very sarcastic and sardonic and wry, and if you aren't, I don't want to say if you're not smart enough, maybe I like these because they make me feel smart, but if you aren't catching that sarcasm and you just read this straight, I feel like it would be a completely different reading experience. But our main character, Raffi Francisco, has a podcast, and she is trying to prove that Riverstone, this like famous singer who just shot to stardom, killed his girlfriend because his girlfriend died mysteriously or disappeared mysteriously and no one's seen her since. And so she's trying to get an interview with this superstar, and he's going to be at Flyfest. So she sinks all her money into going to Flyfest to try and get an interview with him. And of course, if you know anything about Fire Festival, it's a disaster from the moment they get there. Like, there's no food, there's no tents, there's no staff, nothing is set up. They're just on this island, stuck. All of these influencers and people who paid money to party. It is bananas. Oh my god, it's so good. Some of the reviews were like, it felt like unrealistic, ridiculous, one note, but actually I think it was so funny. We've got our main character who is Latinx with all these like white people, all these rich people who came to this like island just to party and could just like blow money on it. And so we have her point of view on the like social gap there. We also have an exploration of like beauty standards, because these are a lot of influencers whose whole career is like being beautiful and like pushing products to make you feel beautiful, and like, you know, skincare, makeup, fitness, all of this materialistic stuff. And our main character, you see her kind of grapple with that throughout, because at first she's like, I don't care, I care about my brains, but then no one's listening to her, so she thinks maybe if I'm like pretty, maybe if I give in, they'll listen to me. And it was just so good. I read some really good books this month, and one of the last books I read this month, which made me sob, absolute 5 stars, is In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. This is a fantasy sci-fi adult story. It's kind of a Pinocchio retelling, but we've got our main character, Victor, who lives in the forest with his father and his friends, and everyone else is robots. His father is an android, and he has 2 friends that he kind of picked out of the junkyard and helped refurbish. One day, Victor and his friends are at the junkyard, and he finds another android, takes him home, fixes him up, creates a heart for him, like his father has, and puts it in the android's chest, and he comes back to life. And it's a story about humanity and like what it means to be human. The way I freaking sobbed at the end of this book was unreal. I don't think I cried as much in Under the Whispering Door maybe, but I think this one I might have cried more. It's a journey story where they're like on a quest to do a thing. The first 100 pages I like kind of wasn't into it. I'm not a huge sci-fi girly. The robots do feel a little one note, because you've got a little Roomba named Rambo, and we have Nurse Ratched, which stands for Nurse Registered Automaton to Care, Heal, Educate, and Drill, which is amazing. And then of course Victor's father is Giovanni. I wasn't really into this, and then they went on their journey because Gio gets taken by these like overlords, because he's been like in hiding for the last 20 to 25 years while Victor grew up. And I don't know if I can properly explain why this book hit me so hard, why it was so good, why I cried so much. I don't know. I was just kind of in it, and then suddenly I was like in it, and I cared about these characters. Their shticks got funnier. I don't know, man. I've seen other people not like it. That's fine. I can't explain myself. I just think that TJ Klune is able to write characters in such a way that I love them. I love them unashamedly. I love every part of them. It's also a really fascinating world where robots have kind of taken over. Seeing them go on this journey to get Gio back is really interesting, and they meet all these different characters. We also have asexual representation, and I want to read every single book TJ Klune ever writes. In fact, I read that he recently got like an 8-book deal, ? Or something crazy, maybe a 6-book deal, where he's gonna have like 4 new standalone books like he's been doing, and then another series maybe. Or maybe I think it was a publisher acquired the rights to the Wolf Song like quartet plus 4 other like new books. I hope that TJ Klune is thriving, and I cannot wait to read everything he writes. So those were the 20 books that I read in August. I almost said January. I don't know what is happening. I am gonna cool it for September. We're gonna chill out. We're gonna read a couple less books, and then in October we're gonna go full ham on the spookies. I'm ready. Are you ready? If you like this video, you could subscribe to me, but really, you can do whatever you want, and I'll see you next time.